Hello, hello, and namaste, everybody. Welcome to the first live stream of 2023. I'm so glad that you all are here with me today, here for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever we happen to do. I'm excited to be back. It's been about a month since we've had our live stream because I went overseas, and I can tell you more about that as we go. And of course, the holidays here and stuff like that. So it's been a while. I'm glad to be back in this seat here on a Saturday, talking to you all for a little bit. So, as always, if you are watching for the first time or you're a returning viewer, please put in the chat where you're watching from. I love to know where you all are watching from. It gives me a sense of scope about the reach of the channel, and I like to, kind of tailor it to maybe where you are. So, yeah, let me know where you are watching from, and we will go from there. So if you are new to the stream, just keep in mind that the way this works is that you are more than welcome to put any questions or comments in the chat. I will do my very best to answer them to the best of my ability. However, of course, I can't answer everything extemporaneously to the top of my head. So I'll do my best. If I can't get to your question or something like that, don't be offended. I can always write it down in my little book I keep here, and you can get back to me on LinkedIn or whatever else. So that's the way the live stream works. So the way I usually do this is I'll kind of give you some updates on what's going on in the channel, what's going on sort of around my neck of the woods, and then I'll get to whatever questions or comments you might have, regarding anything, pretty much. It's because it's kind of like an AMA. You can kind of ask me whatever within reason, of course. So that's kind of how this works. So what's been going on? So we haven't had a live stream in about a month, holiday season, and then, of course, I went overseas to Amsterdam, which I can talk more about in a minute if you really want to know about my trip to Amsterdam. I'm more than happy to talk about that. Some things on the channel have happened recently that are very good. So the channel, if you didn't see, the channel crossed 275,000 subscribers a couple of days ago. So obviously I'm excited about that. I don't do it for subscribers. I don't do it for the numbers and stuff. I do it to help people. But it is good to see that, it's benefiting enough people that people keep subscribing. That's what this really means. And I'm happy that the channel is continuing to grow. I would have never in a million years ever in any universe thought that the channel would be where it is right now. So I'm very proud of that, very happy for that. And, onward. We just go onward. So good milestone for the channel. Right here, Dexy watching from Boston. Hello, hello, hello. Good. Trad from PH. I probably know what that means, but maybe you can remind me what PH stands for. I'm sure if I think of it for a minute, I'll know. But welcome to the channel. So what else is happening? So like I said, I just returned from overseas last week. I was in Amsterdam. Had a good time there. It was cold and rainy, which you would expect in Amsterdam, but it was cool to ring in the new year in Amsterdam. And luckily the rain kind of held off for actually New Year's Eve, and went to an outdoor celebration on Museumplein, which is sort of where all the museums are in Amsterdam if you've ever been there. And it was really cool to get outside and be around others and do the countdown. And yeah, it was really, really cool experience to be there during that time. So I can talk more about that trip if you really want to know. I'm more than happy to do that. Right. Yes. Philippines. All right. Thank you, Trad. I really appreciate that. Thank you for clearing that up for me. So the channel. So obviously I've been gone for a while, but I have put together 2 new videos. One I did right before I left for Amsterdam, and then one I actually created while I was in Amsterdam. So those are ready to record. So you should expect those out in the next week or two, something like that. I'm hoping to record one of those maybe this weekend and get it out next week. Monday's a federal holiday here in the US. It's Martin Luther King holiday. So I might use that time to do some of that work and get some new content out for you. I know this is also obviously the beginning of the new semester for a lot of people, depending on where you are in the world and how the semesters work, and if you're in college. So, this is the beginning of a new semester. If that is for you, obviously consult the channel if you have any questions. And if there's something that's not on there that you think maybe I could do for you, you just let me know. All right. So I do want to share this like I always do, just so everyone can kind of know how to navigate everything. All right. So obviously here's the channel. You can find everything you need there. Playlists are probably the best place to go. So if you go to the playlist, you'll see all the playlists located here. I obviously have a Willow website you can follow as well. If you're looking for anything particular, just follow these links in the top of it. So for example, if I just go to the YouTube section, you can see a simplified playlist there. If I go to a more advanced playlist page, you will see all the playlists for stats. If you hover over them, you'll see exactly how many videos are in that topic and how long the entire playlist is. And then you can kind of, either binge watch or you can figure out how much time it would take to watch that topic. But this will take you right there immediately, and you can find what you need, without having to hunt around for it or whatever else. And you can plan your time accordingly. So that's my little website here where you can find that. You can also find the downloads for certain videos. So if you're looking for an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, you can find that here as well. And then also I have the PDF companions. So if you're looking to support the channel and like to get a study guide to go along with the most popular playlists, you can purchase those here. Again, you can consider it a donation to help with the cost of running the channel, but you get, a 300, 400, 500, 300 or 400 page PDF in return. So I have those here on the website. You can check that out. Also have a live stream question form. If you're going to come to the live stream, you can fill this out and then it'll email me your question, and then I can look at that, when the stream comes, and maybe answer that, prepare ahead of time and answer that for you, of course. And then also, as you all probably know, I'm obviously on LinkedIn, so please make sure to follow me there if you don't already. Blow this up. No, look, I'm live. That is pretty cool. That is definitely complete meta. All right, so you can follow me on LinkedIn as well. All right. So let me get this off the screen. I think I have pretty much everything I wanted to show you. Oh, while I'm here, if you're interested, I can show you a few little pics I took of Amsterdam. Again, this live stream is not, for me to show you vacation photos. But some of them are pretty cool. Of course, obviously these are some of the canals. It was really pretty, as you might expect, but it was very rainy and very cold. But it was just good to go somewhere new and explore, part of the world that I haven't been to, and had a really good time. Lots of museums. It's a really cool place, very safe place, and yeah. So yeah, it's just a really it was a really cool trip. It was a really cool trip. I think there's anything else I wanted to show you here. It was really cool to get up high and see the city from up above, and yeah, it was just really cool place. It's actually a lot smaller than you might think. It's a pretty compact. It's a pretty compact city in terms of space. So yeah, so that was my Amsterdam trip. Again, you can ask me questions if you really want to know about it, but this is not a vacation sharing live stream. All right, so yeah, whatever questions, what comments, questions do you have? Put them in the chat, and I will do my best to answer them. So yeah, hey, nice setup. Yeah, it's works pretty well, as far as getting everything out. Yeah, I'm still getting back into the groove after being gone for a while. So it'll take me a little bit of time to kind of get back into things and stuff like that. So obviously, I think one of the biggest things that's happened, and I'm interested on some of your all's thoughts on this, especially as it pertains to education, is really the blowing up of ChatGPT. And I have thoughts on that. a bit nuanced thoughts on that. But I'm interested in what you all think about the emergence of generative AI. Of course, we've had it for images at least for a while now, but how this changes how we approach our education, how this changes how we approach our work, and stuff like that. I'm interested in getting your thoughts on these generative AI, chat, sort of bots. I guess it's really a bot, but chat sort of things. For education, I think it's going to be, there's no way around it. We just have to live with it, and it's understanding the best way to live with it and how we might utilize it in education. So there's no way to avoid it. It's just going to be there. So I'm interested in some thoughts you all might have on your view of that, whether it's education, work, or, in general. So put some comments. Very interested in your time series playlist. Bonsan, thank you very much. Yes, the time series playlist is
I would like to thank the sponsor.
Is up and running. So I have, I think, 6 or 7 videos in that playlist right now, and I'm going to add a couple more. So yeah, so the time series playlist is off and running. I need to get back into sort of like the mental space of that and make some more content. Of course, when you're away, you kind of get out of the mental space of making videos and stuff. So I'll get back into that sort of space. I got 2 ready to record, like I said. So I'm hoping to get those out in the next week or 2, and then off to the races, from there. So when you be uploading further videos in the time series playlist, looking forward to it. Yes. So Pansan, hopefully I'll have one out early next week. I can record it hopefully this weekend and then get it out sometime, next week. It might be anytime between Tuesday and Thursday is, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays when I try to release new videos. So you might look out for, for the next one on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of next week. Just depends on my time and the other things I have to do to get that recorded. I think it's going to be a relatively short one. So it shouldn't be too crazy in terms of time commitment for me to get out. But I do have work piled up, after being out for like basically a month. So my 9-to-5 job, I have work that's kind of piled up. I have some other side gigs I do that's kind of piled up. So I'll get to these as soon as possible. All right. Thank you so much for everything. You are very, very, very welcome. That's why I do it. I do it to help everybody the best I can. I can't do it full time, but I do it to help people, and hopefully you find it beneficial, which seems you do. So thank you very much. Yeah, so the chat GPT thing I think is going to be very interesting. It might make obsolete people like me to some degree. It might really influence education in ways that we can't fully anticipate. These things just might make certain educational content obsolete, depending on how much personal touch a person really wants when they're out there looking for educational content. Can they just type a question into, an AI chatbot, or do they want something a bit more personal? I don't know. That's just, we're going to wait and see sort of how that goes. And it's wide open now, and now that Microsoft is going to invest, into it. And then I saw this morning, I think Google was supposed to have some sort of alternative or competitor AI out this year at some point. We are really off to the races. And GPT-3 is like infinitesimal compared to what GPT-4 is going to be. So we're just seeing like the very basic tip of the iceberg of this emergence of AI in our education and work lives. I was actually, this past week, I was actually invited by our Cengage, which is my 9-to-5 job, Cengage Group HR team, to kind of present to them and walk them through some basic concepts in data visualization. And one of the things we talked about in that session was the emergence of AI in the human resources space, like it will be everywhere else. And I joked that HR, human resources, should now be called HAIR, HAIR, for human and artificial intelligence resources. That's the future of HR. So we had a good discussion about that, a good discussion about data visualization. It was a great session, and I thank them for inviting me. It was really, really cool. All right. Trent, much thanks here as well. Great help on learning statistics. You are very welcome. You are very welcome. And I always say that just because I move on to another topic for in this example, like time series, that doesn't mean I won't release more statistics content in the future. That's not what that means at all. So sometimes I try to find a topic that is related to statistics that I think people are interested in, and I think I can have a voice in explaining and teaching in, and then I might go off on that for a while to create some different sort of content, and then always get back to statistics because there's always stuff to do in statistics. So I might get back to that sort of at some point. But you are very, very welcome, Trad, for that. Whatever you can get on the channel. And I thank you for your comment. I really do appreciate that. So, all right. So, interesting question. So Vidbot asks, what would the intersection of hypothesis-driven modeling, for example, logistic regression, to find an effect, and data mining, for example, using a random forest or maybe some other algorithm for finding the best predictor be? So there's an overlap here, right? So actually one of the things I did in our HR session when we're looking at data visualization and talking about AI, I actually brought up a program called Orange, which can do data mining. It's called Orange Data Mining. And I showed them how easy it is to connect a bunch of learners to a test and score widget and then pick the best, method or the best model for making, predictions based off the confusion matrix, right? So in this case, although this is a data mining program, one of the learners in it is logistic regression. And of course you had, random forest, there was trees in there. We used SVM, any sort of classifier algorithm we used. And of course it built it in 30 seconds. The whole thing was done in 30 seconds. So the intersection of hypothesis-driven modeling and logistic regression to find an effect, and data mining using random forest for finding the best predictor, well, they can be the same thing. So in traditional statistics, when we would use logistic regression, where we have a binary sort of outcome variable, that works exactly like linear regression would. We just have E raised, to the linear regression equation, basically. So it depends on the application, because logistic regression can be used in data mining as well to find best predictors. And actually in that sort of process, one of the widgets you can apply to that learner is a node that shows the most important predictors, or the ones that have the biggest effect on those predictions. So it's not, it's more, instead of an intersection, it's like, it is an overlap, right? You can use some of these for both, more of a hypothesis-driven traditional statistics and the data mining application, and you can use them on their own as well. So, all right. Let's see here. What do we got here? What else? So Vidbot, I hope that answers your question. If you want me to elaborate on any of that, I'm more than happy to do that. But a lot of this stuff can be used in various applications. There's no, right or wrong. So if I'm using logistic regression in a traditional statistics sense, just like I would regular linear regression with a continuous, output variable, you would use it in exactly the same way. But we could also use logistic regression and other algorithms for data mining purposes. For me, they're kind of one in the, it just depends on the question you're asking and what you hope to get out of the process. That's my take. Other people involved in data science and machine learning and whatnot might have a different perspective on that. But from where I sit, in the work I do in the education space, and then just in, business applications, just tip of the iceberg type applications. That's how I sort of see it, you know. And in that thing, and then in that demonstration I was doing for the HR folks, where it happened to be in that case, that the point of that demonstration was to show how easy it is to use freely available software and some basic rudimentary knowledge to build some machine learning models that can tell you what the best predictors are for an outcome variable. In this case, the example was, it was fictitious data because you can't do this with real data, in that environment. But it was whether or not the employee quit. So it was an attrition data set that we worked with. And what we could do is set that outcome variable to yes, that employee left the company, and then generate models and find the best model, and then generate graphs that showed the most important predictors and the size of the effect they had on those predictors. And you could have done that for any of the learners. Logistic regression happened to be the best learner for that, but if support vector machine was the best, we could do the same thing for that. So it just depends, on the application you're looking to do, what you're hoping to get out of it, and who and what the end user is going to do with that information. So it's a very good question. It's there's no really easy answer to that, VidBot. It just depends on, again, the situation, the application, and the end goal of doing that analysis. So, all right. Okay, let me go back through the comments and questions here. What other comments and questions do you have? Go ahead and put those in the chat, and I will get to those like I did VidBot, the best that I can. Let's see here. I think, oh yeah, what are you watching from? Desky's watching from Boston. Haven't been to Boston in a while. Last time I was in Boston, it was like a huge snowstorm. So that was a long time. That was several years ago. Glad you're watching there from Boston. All right. So VidBot says, thank you for your great answer. I read somewhere that any hypothesis-driven model containing more than 8 predictors would be in data mining theory, thus better off using random forest or SVM. Good point. So what you could do, this is just one of several paths you could take, right? So if you have that many predictors, one of the first things you might do is, on one path of this process, you can go down a path where you're trying to either eliminate or consolidate predictors into, into larger factors. You could do something like that. You could limit it to the factors that explain however much variation. So on my channel, I've talked about several ways you can do that using model selection methods. So you could go down a path of this analysis that uses traditional model building techniques. So you can use stepwise regression or best subsets regression or whatever else. And then when you do that, there will probably be a point where adding additional predictors doesn't really give you much. So you could have a branch of your analysis where you only use the predictors that explain that sort of, a model that uses the predictors where the diminishing returns happens. So, as we know, in a traditional regression sense, adding predictors will always increase your explained variance. It will stay the same or increase. It will never, more accurately, I should say, it will never reduce the explained variance. But there's a point where they just stop really adding anything valuable, and the curve kind of flattens out on what they're explaining. That would be your cutoff point. Then you could run analysis using just those variables from that point on. So there are multiple ways to approach it, and what you can do is see if you go down this path of variable reduction techniques or variable consolidation techniques, what does that give you? And then you can run it with all the predictors in sort of a data mining type environment and look between the two. Like, does this approach say the same thing kind of sort of as this approach? Is there a corollary between these different approaches? And then if it tells you kind of the same thing, then you're on the right track. Because whether or not you use all the variables and take the top whatever, or you eliminate variables and use those, you get the same, basic result, then you know that you're on the right track. So that's sort of what I can say about that. But in the end, we try to keep our models as simple as possible, so we don't inflate the variance per se. But of course, in these machine learning algorithms, when you're doing cross-fold validation and stuff, it tries to, you can tune it as well if you really want to, tries to eliminate those sorts of things that happen. But I'm a proponent of trying different methods, because there's no necessarily right method all the time. Trying different methods and seeing if they agree, and if I know they agree, then I know I'm on the right track. For example, if we were doing the employee attrition example in Orange that I was talking about, if I did a traditional logistic regression, like in Excel, and it told me that variable 1 was this, variable 2 was this, 3, 4, and so on, just did it in like Excel or whatever else, then I went into Orange or another data mining program and ran a logistic regression with five-fold cross-validation, and it told me 1, 2, 3, 4 are the same, then I would say, you know what? Those are probably the top 3, 4 variables that explain the most variance and sort of in the model, and done. That's what I would do. But, other people might have a different take. Other people might disagree with that. But I tend to like the idea of trying different methods and seeing if they agree. It's almost like a democratic way of doing these sorts of things to see if they agree. All right. Okay. Like your answer better. Okay, try. I try. So I'm glad you found the answer sort of helpful and all that. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, is just trying different ways. All right. So I'm gonna grab a drink here. All right. Okay. Yes, thank you again. Truly brilliant. I'm not sure about the brilliant part, but you are very welcome. Everyone has their own way of problem solving. That's just sort of my way of problem solving. I have these tools that they're aligned toward the same goal, the same endpoint, but they do it in slightly different ways. And with modern technology and all the tools we have available, why not just try, a handful of different ways of approaching the problem independently, and then see what each one says. And then if they tend to agree, then, that tells me at least that I'm kind of on the right track, which it may or may not, end up being, but that's just sort of the way my brain works, and the way sort of I approach things just in my everyday life, not only in this sort of setting. So, but you are very welcome. And maybe I'll do a video like that at some point. I think I think it's a very good idea for a video, is to take like that example I was talking about, the employee attrition example, and try different ways and see what does traditional logistic regression say? What does a sort of a data mining application say? What does a third method say? And then seeing what the overall output is, what the overall conclusion is, and then sort of democratically pull them all in and say, hey, this is what we think the end result will be. So I very rarely ever trust one method on something. I try to get more than one method, and that's with everything. It's like the old doctor, kind of a second opinion, a third opinion. That's kind of the way I work. Okay. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. I think I've answered most of the questions. Yeah, so if you have any other questions, now is the time. I don't want to keep anyone any longer than absolutely is necessary. So if you have any other questions or comments, now is the time to put them in there. And just to reiterate, just double check. Yeah, I think I got them all. So just to reiterate, I'm going to have another video or two coming out in the next week or two. Some ones that I worked on before going to Amsterdam, and then some, actually one I made in Amsterdam at a coffee shop. It was a great little coffee shop in Amsterdam, of which there are many. I should be careful what I say. It wasn't a coffee shop in Amsterdam. That's something else. It was a cafe in Amsterdam, not a coffee shop. Coffee shop is something else. Cafe is where you get coffee. But I worked in a cafe on a video, and I should have that out sometime here soon. And then I'm hoping to get back into the groove, the time series groove, like beyond those two videos next week is my goal. So I think I pretty much got everything. But again, I just want to thank, if you weren't in the chat at the beginning, I want to thank you. I want to wish you all a good 2023. That's me in Amsterdam during New Year's. I also want to say thank you for this milestone on the channel. I never thought it would ever in a bazillion years get to where it is. I'm so thankful to all you all for that. So a question, maybe a silly question, but as a follow-up on that, trying different methods in different spaces, isn't there a risk of that deteriorating into simple P hacking? No, I don't think so, because what I'm talking about is those are independent things, So for me, what I'm trying to do is see what different methods tell me about what, in this case, what you're talking about, VidBot, is what are the most important factors in making whatever predictions we're trying to make. But those are independent of each other. They don't know about each other. So if one method over here says it's this, and another method over here says it's something slightly different, then we got to ask why those two things are different. Do they analyze the data in a different way, or whatever have you? So for me, it's like it's a voting sort of thing. In the same sense, like when we were doing the employee attrition example, like I tied like 6 different learning models to the test and score widget. Is that P hacking? I don't think so. I was just giving each algorithm a chance to make the best predictions. And in that case, logistic regression made the best predictions. So it was a democratic way for them all to try to see what the most important predictors were. What we're talking about earlier is just trying a different method to see independently what each one says. It's like a doctor's second opinion. So if I go to Dr. A and this doctor tells me something, and Dr. B tells me something, and Dr. C tells me something, I don't consider that doctor hacking. I consider that getting 3 independent views on whatever the issue might be. That's the way I view it, but that's just me. So Manal has a question. I have a question. As a project portfolio, I am doing the house price prediction problem, but instead of focusing on modeling part like in Kaggle, I am focusing on doing a proper statistical analysis and hypothesis testing. And I was wondering whether it's a good idea or not for machine learning or data science portfolio project. Thanks a lot for your time. Well, this actually dovetails. And now, first of all, thank you for your question, and thank you for stopping by the chat. I think it just depends on the context of, you said this was for a project. Yeah, for a project. It depends on what your final deliverable will want to be. So in traditional statistics and this sort of thing, which I've done on my channel and other people sort of have done as well, Um, there are limitations to each, right? So if you're doing just a traditional statistical analysis of some house price data, looking at what factors go in or are most important in the price of a home in a given area or however you're sort of doing it, it's really like a one, unless you're doing something fancier, it's just based on that one sort of sample, right? So oftentimes the risk in doing something like that is that it overfits because you are using just the data to make that one model based on traditional statistics. And the risk is that, yes, you can build a very nice and tight explanatory model based off that one sort of sample you're using in traditional statistics, versus when you're doing more of a machine learning / data sciencey sort of thing. What you're usually doing there is using various models to make those sort of predictions. You actually, in that case, might get a better explanatory model in that sort of case, because we're often using like cross-fold validation or some other splitting sort of techniques. Tends to be less of a risk of overfitting because we're constantly showing it new data. So what might happen is you might have a situation, if you're doing like a machine learning or data sciencey type application of this problem, where, you know, you might have a model that's outside of traditional statistics that do the best explanatory power, and it becomes a black box problem. One of the great things about traditional statistics, whether it's just linear regression for a continuous, outcome variable, is that it's very transparent, which may or may not happen if you do a machine learning or data sciencey type thing. But my question is, do you have to choose one or the other? Can you do both? Plus also remember that if you're doing, like if I were doing this in Orange or some other program where I can try different algorithms on the data, traditional regression would be one of them. It would be one of several. I'd probably try, regression. I'd probably try a tree, because trees can handle continuous outcome as well. It'll just split it on those continuous ones, on those continuous variables. You can try a neural network if you really want to go gung-ho. It's probably overkill. But yeah, you could try different algorithms, of one of which would be linear regression. So maybe you can do a combination of both of these applications and see, again, what each one says. But I will say that the one risk in doing just a traditional statistical analysis, which there's nothing wrong with at all, is that it will be by definition tailored to that particular data set at that point in time. So another thing, you didn't mention this, but one thing you might want to do in this sort of situation is, because like house prices change over time, it might be a good idea to have house prices from different points in time if you really want to like build out a more generalizable model, because obviously time is going to be an explanatory factor, because home prices over long periods of time tend to rise. That is a factor, right? So that was a long answer to your question, but my first question is, why do you have to do one or the other? If you want to do modeling, or you want to do a more machine learning type data science sort of situation. So I think the most important thing here, Manal, is to contextualize your analysis and talk about the limitations of each one. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just making sure that the end user and then your explanation in the end accounts for some of the limitations and some of the other, the strengths and limitations of each method, if you want to do both. But again, if you do a machine learning type machine learning type application for this problem, you're going to have regression in there anyway. Unless you were planning on doing some other traditional statistical method. But I would assume that you're doing multiple regression. So that's my 2 cents. If you ever want to follow up with any of those comments, just put it in the chat and I'll do my best. All right. So VidBot, yeah, gotcha. Thanks again. You are very welcome. Willie Game Dev, hello. Hello. I love your avatar. That's really cool. Roman, hello, hello. Channel is amazing. Step by step, I started to understand basic of statistics. Excellent, Roman. That's why I do it. I'm very happy that it helped you. That's the reason it exists. So thank you very much for your eyeballs and your time. And I'm glad the channel has been helpful and continues to be helpful for you. All right. Good questions there at the end. Good questions. So I'll wait another minute or two, see if any other questions pop up. If not, I'll let you get on with your day and I'll get on with my day. But yeah, so we'll get back into the groove of doing these live streams every 2 weeks. So the next one, barring anything weird happening, will be January 28th. So 2 weeks from today. And then every 2 weeks after that, unless there's like a holiday or I go out of town or I'm sick, knock on wood, or something like that. We'll do it every 2 weeks starting today, unless something comes up. So yeah, if you come into the live stream, try to think of a question or 2 or 3 or whatever you want to bring to the live stream, and or you can email it to me on my website. I'll do my best to to answer it ahead of time. So, all right, I think that is pretty much everything I have in the chat. So yeah, so thank you all again. Watch out for the next couple of videos on time series the next week or 2. Try to get those out to you as soon as I can. And yeah, think more about the implications of these generative AI chats, chat GPT and stuff like that. I'm interested in your thoughts over the next, several months as these things blow up even more, about how you think they might influence education and, your job, our typical day jobs. So I'm interested in your thoughts, but I want to keep you. So we'll go ahead and wrap up this live stream. And I will see you again in 2 weeks. And of course, Happy New Year 2023.